everybody, and welcome to King County Recovery Conversations. My name is Christopher Archiopoli. My pronouns are he, him, his. I want to thank King County Recovery Coalition and Orbit Audio for helping put this together. Today, my guest is Johnny Bousquet. He's here to chat with us about his recovery story. Johnny, you and I, we met the first time when I was working at Pure Seattle. Mm-hmm. Lisa Dugard brought you in as this, sort of experience or example of lived experience. Uh-huh. And at the time I was like, yeah, I'm sure he's got a story. Seems like a cool guy. And you left and I was like, oh, cool to meet Johnny. And then 6 months later, I'm working with you. Uh-huh. And my first week, they show us this video from Nightline from 2014 or something. Uh-huh. And this video shows, and then you speak during and sort of after it. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, this is not just like an example of lived experience. This is like the success story. Like, this is when we talk about like people who have been successful and have like navigated systems and have like overcome stuff, this is the person. And as soon as they came to me and said like, oh, we want you to be one of the hosts for King County Recovery Coalition or Conversations, I thought, mm-hmm. Johnny has got to be one of my guests. Wow. So that's how I know you. You inspire me. I know that's a little cliche, but I'm so glad that you're here today. So, why don't you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your story, just, whatever you think people should know about you.
Cool. Thank you, Christopher. And thank you for this opportunity to be here. I also feel the same exact way about you. So appreciate you. I appreciate this opportunity. For me, the way that I got here, how I ended up in this chair with you today is just a testament of what community support really means. I grew up in a house where it was impacted by addiction. My mother was addicted to heroin. My grandmother was an alcoholic. My mom was in and out of jail and prison my whole life, my whole childhood life. And basically, by the time I got into my teenage years, I found myself struggling with substance use disorder, unmet mental health needs, and I learned a lot of survival skills, which society has deemed illegal. So my relationship with the criminal justice system started when I was really young, when I was 12 years old, and just cycling in and out of that, going back and forth, in and out of jail, in and out of inpatient treatment, and not really ever getting my hooks into any kind of recovery because it was so compliance-based and I wasn't able to meet the requirements. So I would end up going back to jail. And it wasn't until I sold crack to an undercover cop in 2014 when I was a person experiencing homelessness, just trying to get my needs met, selling small amounts of drugs to support my heroin, meth, crack, Xanax, and alcohol habit, that I was introduced to a different way, a way where we describe it as companion-based case management, where I was able to connect with some people that spoke my language and were really there for me, really circled the wagons every time I would fall off, continuously support me when I was doing good, and just we're really savvy with navigating all of the local resources and being able to call specific people to help me to get opportunities that for anybody coming from a marginalized community understands that these resources, however basic, are extremely tough to be able to access sometimes. And I'm talking about stuff as basic as housing, healthcare, quality healthcare, right? Because you can go to the emergency room and unless you have a bullet hole in you, sometimes it's really hard to get quality care. And a lot of times, even if you do have a bullet hole in you, it could be tough to access quality care. So just having a fierce advocate meeting me on a human level and walking with me was really helpful. And that's how I ended up here, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point that you bring up, is, people think that services are easy. Like, the services are there. Why aren't people accessing them? Why are people that are living on the streets, like, not looking for housing, not looking for a job, not going to the doctor? Can you tell me a little bit about what it feels like to try and access services like that when, you're living in addiction, when you're living on the streets, like how challenging that is?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question too. Just imagine having a 5,000-pound weight on your back, and this weight dictates everything that you do throughout the day. And so it's pretty tough when you have something making your schedule to keep up with appointments, and being able to access resources like methadone, Suboxone, treatment. You have to be somewhere at the same time every single day. So if you don't have a place to lay your head down, to plug an alarm clock into, to charge your phone, to set your alarm to, it makes it really tough. So having just a place to wake up every day, or somewhere to be, access to a shelter with quality staff, it really can make a big difference. For me, it made a really big difference. Just being able to be found when my case managers would be looking for me, they would know where to look. And having somebody go to those appointments with me, where there's all of these disparities that I had encountered so many times over and over again, it made me really, they use a term called service resistant. And I like to say service denied, because there's a big difference, right? If you go somewhere and you're expecting help, but you get punched in the face, it's kind of hard to pull your bootstraps up and go back to that same place. But when you have a fierce advocate like a case manager that really understands how to navigate these systems, and they go with you, and we're looking at not what you did, what happened to you, but why, and more trying to help you out from a holistic standpoint, trying to connect you to resources that help you with each one of those things that you have going on. I call them bells and whistles. Some people call them unmet mental health and behavioral health and substance use needs. When you have somebody that believes in you and is willing to connect with you and give you more than one try, it makes all of the difference. So just having a case manager show up with me after I missed a couple appointments, understanding, hey, I didn't sleep for 3 days, right? So it made it really hard for me to meet you at that place at 8:00 in the morning, because I wasn't even sure what day it was. That basic understanding and willing to keep on supporting you instead of just saying, oh, I gave you one try, you're done. That makes a big difference, because when you don't have somebody walking with you, you feel forgotten, you feel unheard, and you feel not valuable. At least just speaking from my experience, and having somebody there with me saying, "Hey, you don't know what day of the week it is. That's understandable. Let's try this again tomorrow or another day, and I'll come and find you." That was a big deal for me.
Yeah, I mean, that idea of meeting people where they're at, understanding that, when someone's having a difficult time, they can't necessarily meet me where I'm at. The onus really is on me to some extent to meet that person where they're at. And when people feel like they are welcome and when they belong somewhere, they're much more likely to engage. I feel like you and I have probably had the same, experience where we go somewhere where we're not wanted. Why would I want to go back there? When you were living unhoused, what was your community like?
It was the people around me. We engaged in the same type of behavior, and we supported each other. And what that would look like is we would get involved in low-level crimes to support our habits, just trying to stay well. We would look out for each other late at night. We would take turns being awake. We would make sure the fires weren't too close to the tents. We would just check in with each other, because most of us were, either alienated or estranged from our families, and we're literally all we had. So we depended on people for finding food, knowing which shelters had beds open, knowing where to be at what time for the best food around. It was it was like we were a little family, right? Dysfunctional or functional, however you want to look at it. We made it through the day every day, and we made it through some really tough times.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I've heard from more than just you, and I think that's something that people don't necessarily understand is there are good times within it too. And, I think that people do build this sense of family, this sense of community, that, keeps people where they're at, because they have a sense of belonging.
Absolutely. Yeah. Most of the people I know, not one of them said, hey, when I grow up, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to be doing. However, many of us were second and third generation of experiencing homelessness, substance use disorder, unmet mental health needs. So just having each other and somebody to understand you, it was kind of like a us against the world thing. And if we were able to find legit resources, many of us just needed those opportunities and that connection. There was a lot of talk about the LEAD program when I first started experiencing homelessness in Seattle, and I wondered because usually when there's good stuff out there, it has some sort of attachment. So we're like, is this a tell on 3 and go free snitch type of program? And I had seen some of my friends that I was out there every day with getting involved with the LEAD program and having success transitioning into supportive housing or getting vouchers and being able to navigate the legal system in ways that were less punitive than the usual carceral response. And for me, when I saw that was floating around, I actually thought, man, wouldn't it be nice to get busted and get an opportunity to get into the LEAD program? Because that was unheard of, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm a project manager for LEAD. You were one of the first participants in LEAD or one of the early participants in LEAD. What is LEAD?
So LEAD is an acronym, right? It's the original acronym is Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. It's now Let Everyone Advance with Dignity. And being an arrest diversion program, it's basically an opportunity to connect people to resources at the point of arrest, opposed to the alternative carceral response, filing a case against them. And it's not for every single crime out there. It's for low level offenses that people do to support their habit, basically, not like murder, predatory behavior, rape, pimping, that kind of stuff. It's for people that are, engaged in sex work, low level theft, property damage, trespassing, stuff like that. It's an opportunity where it's an arrest diversion program primarily. There's a few different pathways, but began as an arrest diversion program. And for me, I sold drugs to an undercover cop, which is a VOSCA, Violation of Controlled Substances Act, and it was a felony. But I was doing it to support my habit and had a small amount of drugs on me, and they looked at it as an opportunity for me to connect to resources rather than to cycle through the prison system and not get connected to resources, because basically it's the same people doing the same stuff over and over again. It's just cycling through the system, get out, the whole cycle perpetuates and just keeps on going. This is an opportunity to look at it holistically and see, why is Johnny doing this? My case manager was able to see that I had some unmet mental health needs, that I had lots of warrants from everywhere, and I was also unhoused. And to be able to treat all of that in a way that was sustainable for me, something that I could keep up, but also didn't have a specific timeline on it. Like, hey, you need to finish this by this or finish that by that. You need to do your court dates by this date. Really just being person-centered and working with me on my timeline was something that has helped me to be successful and get to this point.
Yeah, because I think we both know that recovery is not linear.
Absolutely.
Recovery does not, it does not necessarily does not, but rarely follows a straight path for folks. So, I mean, for you, when you got into LEAD, was it all smooth sailing, just straight from, the worst to the best?
Absolutely not. I actually, in a 2-year period, I ended up going into inpatient treatment, I think either 4 or 5 times. Each time I would go, I would do pretty good, and then get out and life be lifing. So the shit would hit the fan, and I would end up back where I was at, right? Doing the same stuff. And the thing that really made a difference for me is that they didn't say, okay, we already tried this with you. It's not working. You're done, basically. They would be like, no, what didn't work about that time? And let's circle the wagons and see what kind of support you do need. And they would be there for me for that. I call it creative solutions to complex problems, like, okay, you got out. The housing that we had set up for you maybe might have not been the best fit, or the situation that you got out to might not have been ideal. What can we do better next time? And each time I would get a longer spurt of recovery. There was actually one time that I didn't make it through treatment and got kicked out, and they were there to meet me outside the treatment place, So just really, really, really being consistent with that support and looking at why and not what.
What was it that, finally clicked or finally worked for you? Like, you said you went multiple times over the course of several years. Was there some sort of defining moment or realization for you that kind of said, okay, I got to do this?
Well, every time I went to rehab, I thought that it was going to be that time. When I was 19, my sister and I found my mom dead from a heroin overdose. And as soon as I started dabbling in opioids, that was something that I was truly fearful of. So I never really enjoyed being loaded. I did it because it basically quelled the symptoms that I had, and it was something that I needed to do to not be sick. So I was always in the mode of a desperate person trying to grab onto anything to change. And what really did it for me the last time is that I went to an all men's treatment center, and they would have these really cool people come in, and we would do a Bible study, and most of my experiences with religion, people were really judgmental, and these people were not. And then we also, every single day, we would have these men's meetings, and we would start off with, I'm a man worthy of dignity and respect. And I would just have that drilled into my head, and I would say it over and over to myself. And when I would get into arguments with the staff, because I've always been a little bit of a nonconformist, I would say, hey, I'm a man worthy of dignity and respect. What the hell's going on right now? This doesn't make sense. And I learned how to advocate for myself and stand up for myself, and also to identify my own goals and have little mini goals towards those big goals. I started to think of stuff from a bigger picture instead of just trying to make it through the day. Once I got, a few days clean, I wanted to change the world. I wanted to get back in my kid's life. I wanted to do all these things, but I knew that I couldn't do it without doing the little things. So I started to get really focused on doing the little things, even just having a time to meditate every day, talking to somebody in my recovery community every day, actually listening to my case managers, making plans with them, and being more open to having goals that were based in reality. And I was like, when I get out of here, I want a nice apartment. I want to have a bunch of cats, and I don't want to do anything else. And my case managers would be like, hey, let's see about fixing up your resume and starting at an entry-level job somewhere and see what that looks like. And after you have a year with a plant that you take good care of, let's look into seeing about getting you a cat. And me being open to that, because I have this saying that I had to be humbled in order to be humble. And it was really just starting from the ground up with that humility and being willing to do whatever it takes. I had people that worked with me that had what I wanted, and I would ask them questions. What did you do to get there? And they would say, well, I would show up every day. I would listen to other people. I would advocate for myself, but I would also be open to feedback and suggestions, just doing that.
Well, and you work with people that were your case managers now.
Yeah, I do.
What is that like?
Man, it's pretty cool. On the 14th or on the 23rd of this month was 3 years working for the org that helped to save my life. And when I first started 3 years ago, I was really nervous and anxious. I was thinking, like, these people were my case managers, part of my care team. How are they going to receive me? Am I going to be able to do the work? Am I going to be able to grab onto the tech stuff? And, I started as a case manager assistant, basically, and then was promoted to a case manager carrying a caseload, and then to a senior case manager carrying a bigger, more intense caseload, and then to supervising all of the case managers. And that included some of the people that used to be part of my care team. And again, I said, how are people going to receive me? How is this going to work? And they've done nothing but love me. We mentor each other. Our skill sets overlap, and it's a beautiful thing when you can call somebody that helped to get you into detox before to help get somebody else into detox, or they're calling you. It's a real gift, Christopher. It's amazing. I actually get super charged up to come into work every day. I've never been so excited to go to work. And I worked in music production for 15 years, and I thought I was charged up to go to work then, right? It's a very similar kind of feeling, but not the same. When you get to see somebody get keys to their apartment after they've been unhoused for 15, 20 years, or to get an ID after they haven't had one for 10 or 20 years, that's a big deal. And just to be able to be a part of that, to be able to explain the thing about having the 5,000-pound beast on your back, making your schedule to somebody that doesn't really come from a lived experience background and has a hard time to process those things. Like when they say, I don't see why somebody would choose drugs over this or that or this. And when I'm able to explain to them, when you have a beast making your schedule that does not negotiate, and they're like, oh, that's magic to me. And when they're able to say, well, this is how the frontal cortex of your brain works, and this is where your lizard brain is reacting, and this is why they're getting upset so quick, and it's a great time for space and grace. Like, I'm like, oh, and just when those skill sets overlap and they're for the good of our community, it's not work, it's a calling, and it's beautiful.
And you are lovable. I know you said sometimes you don't feel like that, but you are a very lovable person. So what does recovery look like for you now?
So recovery for me now, it looks like I use medical marijuana prescribed by a doctor. I have 68 months free from anything else. I was on medically assisted treatment for a while. I participate in a 12-step recovery community that I usually go to about 3 to 5 times a week. Sometimes do some public speaking gigs through there at like inpatient treatment centers and stuff like that. It looks like giving back to my community every single day. Being a fierce advocate for people to have a second chance. Some of them never got a first chance. It looks like being consistent, being vulnerable, asking a lot of questions, asking for help, and being willing to help. It's a lot of responsibility, and it's also very rewarding.
And, where are the struggles?
In recovery?
In recovery, yeah. I mean, where do you still, because I've been in recovery since 2016. I know I have good days and bad days.
Yeah.
I think most people do. I'm curious, like, where are your pressure points?
For me, it's still not being able to be in contact with my kids. It'll be 11 years on Christmas Eve that I've been able to see or talk to my 2 kids. Having to find a way to cope with that on a daily basis. And sometimes it's different ways. I journal, I give back to the community, I talk to people in my recovery community, and I fight hard. I have legal representation now. We're in the process of being able to try to amend the parenting plan. That's my biggest struggle because, I think about it like, okay, we're 6.5 years into this. A lot of people that have done way worse are able to talk to their kids. And it's really about not comparing to other people. There's other people that have, gotten all these opportunities and their life looks different. And it's really about owning that I don't compare stuff, because when I do, I get caught up in the quality of comparison, and it could be a real bite in the butt for me sometimes. So just staying humble, trusting the process. And another thing that's a little bit tough for me too sometimes is when you're fighting for people that society has thrown away, it can be a little bit tough to navigate those spaces, right? When you're talking about some of the challenges that you might come up against when you're with other people that are advocating for marginalized communities, and they're giving you crap about being a fierce advocate for marginalized communities, and I just have to be shrugs. and then also to be able to look at it from a big picture perspective and be open to things that I might not have realized or things that I don't know. So being able to think about stuff as a chess player is a big challenge sometimes for somebody that's as passionate as I am. So just really taking it all in and looking at it like it's chess, but it's not a game because it's people's lives. So trying to take the two of those and do it like that is something.
Yeah, working in social services is, the biggest challenge is like, why isn't this easier?
Yeah.
Why isn't it easier to get somebody housed? Why isn't it easier to get somebody into treatment? Why isn't it easier to connect people to services?
Yeah.
Particularly when they're ready for it. I think that's like one of the hardest things. You work for, the co-lead program. What do you all do there?
So we're basically the lead program with temporary lodging. It's a arrest diversion program focused on public safety and reducing recidivism, connecting people to resources such as healthcare, and then navigating healthcare, their EBT benefits, applying for ABD, SSI if that's the path they're on, and also helping them navigate the legal system. So I supervise our criminal legal liaison department, where we basically do all the person that I supervise does all of the court coordination and stuff like that with the case managers. So just helping people to navigate the legal system, connect to healthcare, and then with the ultimate goal of transitioning into permanent supportive housing or some type of other housing, whatever will be the most sustainable for them. So, that could come with a lot of challenges because you're looking at so many different things. People need to be document ready. We're talking about social security cards, IDs, all of that good stuff. You want to make sure that they don't have warrants that where they could have a lot of jail time hanging over their heads. So if they get housed, that they're able to keep that housing, because if you're in jail for more than 3 months, you could lose your housing unless you're able to get a temporary release and step in for a minute to show yourself. Just navigating all of those systems. And then also we work on a lot of like overdose prevention awareness. We're very lucky to not have had one fatal overdose since we've been open inside of our temporary lodging settings. So basically just doing all of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's finger snaps to you.
Thank you.
And your team. So, we're getting ready to wrap up. What's the takeaway that you want people to know about you and to know about like your dreams and like what you're working on?
Thank you for asking. It wouldn't be for me. It would be for people like us. 6.5 years ago, I was walking around downtown, probably didn't have a shirt on, was definitely talking to myself, eating out of the garbage, in and out of jail, in and out of the emergency room. And I was able to get opportunities. I was able to get cared for, and I was able to get loved and nurtured. They planted a seed, they watered it and watered it and watered it. And when I said I didn't want any water, they didn't give me any water, or they asked me why, and were very persuasive on how to give me the water. What I would want is that for other people to keep on getting these opportunities, because if I didn't get arrested that day, well, if there wasn't opportunities available like the ones that I got that day that I got arrested, there would be no way in hell that I would be here. So my hope would be for my community to be able to keep on getting opportunities like the ones that I've gotten.
And finally, probably the most important question that I'm going to ask you, because people are going to want to know, did you ever get your cats?
I did. I only have 3 cats, and they're named after case managers that I had. One is named Steve, who has been a blessing in my life. One is named Flurry. Her middle name is Michael, and another is named Christiani, but we call him Chris for short. And these are all people that worked at Lead when I was a client there, that made a significant impact on my life.
And at least one of them is still there, right?
Yeah. Michael's still there, and I am so grateful for Michael. I get to see her once a month when we present at the SPD Academy, and it just brings it back. And she's just such a badass, and I just love her.
Well, you're a badass as yourself. I mean, I asked you to sit here for a reason, so I'm really grateful for you spending time with me and everybody that's listening and watching. So yeah, thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Orbit Audio. Thank you, King County Recovery Coalition, and see you all next time on King County Recovery Conversations.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Johnny.
you, everybody.
Yeah.